Good evening and welcome to NTTV's special election coverage, Your Choice 2022. I'm Andrea Valdez.
And I'm Austin Wright. During the next 2 hours, NTTV will bring you coverage of the Texas midterm elections with a focus on key issues raised by you, the voters.
But we will also look at key races across the nation, the handful of states that could swing the U.S. Senate or have an impact on the U.S. House of Representatives.
7 statewide seats are up for grabs. Arguably, the most important race is for governor, but also in the spotlight are the positions of lieutenant governor and attorney general.
NTTV has 2 crews in Austin tonight. First, let's begin our coverage literally in the state capitol. I am joined by NTTV's Noemi Sanchez, who is reporting from the Rotunda. Noemi, what is the energy like today in Austin?
Well, Andre, it's been a really busy day here at the state capitol, and we saw a lot of people come out for issues like abortion rights, immigration, and gun laws. And according to statistics from KVU News, early voting statistics or numbers actually came down compared to 2018 in counties like Williamson, Hayes, and Travis County. But today we met a lady who showed us the real importance of keeping that voting spirit alive. We'll have that full story later on in the show. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Nomi. Well, the state capitol is home to the governor of Texas, and that race is top of mind tonight. Texas is one of 14 states with no term limit on the governor's position. The current Republican governor, Greg Abbott, is running for a 3rd term. His Democratic challenger, Beto O'Rourke, is no stranger to Texas or national politics. O'Rourke served 3 terms in Congress representing a South Texas district, ran a contested race against U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, and made a brief bid for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020. Texas has been a red or Republican state since 1995. The last Democrat who served as governor was Ann Richards from 1991 to 1995. Our second team in the capital city is headed up by our senior content coordinator, Austin Hedgecoth. He is with our media colleagues at the historic Texas Tribune newspaper. Austin, it's early in the evening, but what is the feeling that you were getting from the first reports in the Texas Trib newsroom?
Thanks, Andrea. Election night is a crazy time for everyone involved, and it's no different here at the Texas Tribune. I'll be here throughout the night bringing you live interviews with some of the industry's best and brightest, covering everything from current voting trends, the environment, the power of Texas politics, and everything in between. However, for now, I'll let the dust settle in the state capitol and send it back to you in Denton.
Thanks, Austin. Well, we'll check back in with you later in the evening. Besides the race for governor, there are 2 others to watch, the lieutenant governor's race and attorney general. Up for re-election is Republican Dan Patrick, who has been in the position since 2015. In our state, the number 2 job is very powerful because the lieutenant governor controls workflow in the state Senate and with the budgeting process. And on the Democratic ticket is Mike Collier, a former Republican now turned Democrat. Now he is a highly experienced gas and oil businessman and brands the current Republican administration in Texas as, quote, out of touch with the people.
The other key job on the line tonight is attorney general, the state's top lawyer. Republican Ken Paxton has weathered a number of political and legal challenges, including questions about his financial campaign practices. He has been in office since 2015. Running against him is Democrat Rochelle Garza, a South Texas lawyer who has made health care, rights for women, and immigration key issues in her bid for Texas Attorney General.
The hallmark of any American election night is the watch parties with political supporters cheering on their candidates.
Tonight, NTTV's Olivia Thompson and Armando Berry are at watch parties for Democrat Beto O'Rourke and Republican Greg Abbott. Olivia, let's begin with you. What is the mood like at the Democratic watch party?
Thanks, Austin. I'm here at Gilley's in downtown Dallas at the Dallas County Democratic Watch Party. As you can see behind me, the ambiance is very warm, inviting. It's been that way since I've walked in the room. People are starting to file in and stir those conversations of being eager to hear the results of the polls, as well as the results of those vital state races in Texas for the Democrats. Now, let's go to my colleague Armando Berry, who is with a Republican Party in Flower Mound, Texas. Armando, how's the event going?
Hey Olivia, I'm inside a restaurant called The Scout at the Riverwalk right here in Flower Mound, where the GOP of Denton is having their watch party for these midterm elections. As you see behind me, folks, they're getting prepared, walking around, mingling, and grabbing some food, and getting prepared to watch these votes come in on that big screen behind me. I'll keep you updated throughout the night for more reactions from the Republican Watch Party, but for now, let's send it back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Armando. There are 254 counties in Texas, but 6 account for nearly 50% of the vote. Tonight, we will be following those 6 counties and how those voters are casting their ballots in this midterm. NTTV's Madison Myers is at our state map with more. Maddie?
Austin, Texas has more counties than any other state. Our biggest by population is Harris County, which is in the Houston area. The smallest county in the state is Loving County with only 64 people living there. This is according to the latest census. The 6 counties which make up nearly half of the state vote are Harris, Dallas, Tarrant, Bexar, Travis, and Denton. Bexar County is home to San Antonio and Travis is in the Austin area. In the 2020 elections, 4 of these counties went blue, meaning they voted Democrat. Denton and Tarrant County went red, meaning they voted Republican. I'll have more on each county's voting history and election impact during the evening. We'll follow them and note any changes in their voting patterns, if any. For now, back to you, Andre and Austin.
Thanks, Maddie. Well, NTTV will also be providing election information, stories, and reporting the numbers to our Spanish-speaking viewers. NTTV's Leslie Juarez and Mauricio Ortiz Segura are at the Noticias desk. Chicos, ¿qué tienen para nosotros?
In how many minutes? 10? 20? 10? 15?
De los votos para las elecciones de medio término en Texas.
Así es, Mauricio, durante este programa tendremos cortes donde nosotros también podremos informarlos sobre los problemas y los temas que los afectarán estas elecciones.
Y tendremos cobertura en vivo desde el Capitolio de Texas con nuestra reportera bilingüe Noemi Sánchez. Este día es importante porque los votos de la comunidad tejana determinarán al gobernador, vicegobernador y otras oficinas importantes en el estado de Texas.
La posición de gobernador tiene 2 candidatos peleando por el puesto. Por el lado republicano tenemos al actual gobernador Greg Abbott y por el lado demócrata a Beto O'Rourke. Recordemos que Greg Abbott se está postulando para un 3er periodo en cargo como gobernador.
Hagamos un recuento de las políticas que cada candidato apoya. Por el lado republicano, el candidato Greg Abbott se ha enfocado en inmigración asegurando la frontera, expandir los derechos a favor de las armas y rebajar los impuestos de propiedades.
Por otro lado, el candidato demócrata Beto O'Rourke se ha enfocado en el control de armas, en defender los derechos al aborto y la legalización de la marihuana.
Hay 254 condados en Texas, pero 6 representan casi el 50% de los votos y esta noche Austin y Andrea estarán siguiendo a esos 6 condados. Regresamos con ellos.
Thanks, guys. Well, one of the undeniable facts about election campaigns is the importance and influence of social media. Whether it is tweeting, Instagramming, TikToking, or any other platforms in use, social media is part of the fabric of the political process. Let's head to NDTV's Social Media Center with Cindy Deshawn and Isabella Quintanilla.
Thanks, Austin. You're right. Whether you love social media or wish it would just go away, there is no escaping it.
Tonight, we will be working with our social media team to follow trends, comments, and issues as they surface on various platforms.
We will also be vetting comments as they appear and will keep you posted as relevant information to these elections becomes available.
Andy and Austin, that's it for the moment. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, ladies. Well, when we come back from a short break, we will take a look at the voting as the numbers have been coming in.
We'll also take a look at some of the key issues in this election and check in with our panel of experts. Stay with us.
Non-perishable food items, and I don't know what to do with them.
I don't have any food at all.
Do you have too many non-perishable goods?
Yeah.
Have you run out of food and can't get any more?
Yeah.
Well, don't have a cow. Head on down to the UNT Food Pantry. Located behind Crumley Hall and Diamond Eagle Student Resource Center, the Food Pantry is the place for UNT students to get all the food they need. You'll be utterly surprised by all the options they have there. From gluten-free to lactose intolerant, even vegan and vegetarian, they have it all. Go to studentaffairs.unt.edu/food pantry for more information.
Move on down to the UNT Food Pantry. So a man's been walking in the desert for days at a time. He finally comes across a bar and orders a Coke.
That's not funny.
Eh? Eh?
Are you feeling okay? No, I've been feeling gross all week. Maybe we should go get a COVID test. But I already have all 3 of my shots. Yeah, but you can still get it. I mean, maybe we should go get one just in case. Yeah, you're right. We have that party and all that. Yeah. Why do we even get tested here? Let me check.
You can find free COVID testing sites at the University Union, room 381 on weekdays, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and on weekends, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., and at Chestnut Hall, room 120, from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. You have to show the QR code given to you when you arrive for an appointment. Tests take no longer than 10 minutes to complete. Results will be sent through text or email within the next 48 hours.
I got a negative COVID test. Me too. Oh my god, let's go to the party. Yes. Let's go.
Welcome back to Your Choice 2022. The polls here in Texas close at 7 o'clock, so the numbers are still being processed. We'll let you know as soon as we have more.
Well, when it comes to issues during an election, there is an old saying with a lot of truth: people vote with their pocketbooks. Let's go ahead and take a hard look at the economy, and that can indicate how they will vote.
And certainly Texans pay close attention to their wallets, but other issues have surfaced even in the past 2 years. Topics like abortion, the border, and the environment have all taken on significant political overtones.
In Texas, the reliability of our power grid, gun control, and even teacher shortages have become a huge political issue. Now let's go to our issues anchor, Kyle Orr, to begin to take a look at some of these questions. Kyle?
You're right. While all those topics have a political track record, in the past few years, they've become even more important to voters. Let's start with gun control. The right to bear arms is a guarantee in the U.S. Constitution, but we also face the issue of protecting citizens from the misuse of those firearms. The increase in mass shootings across the nation, whether in the workplace, entertainment venues, or in our classrooms, has made gun control a priority issue for many people. Our very own Andrea Valdez has more.
An issue echoed louder in Texas, that of the issue on gun control. In fact, in 2022, the state saw nearly 1,402,074 firearm background checks from January to October. According to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, there were nearly 6,000 federally licensed dealers and pawnbrokers as of January 2022 here in the state of Texas. One argument shared on both sides is the importance of gun safety. Ken Cardin is a retired veteran and gun instructor who has been teaching guns since Texas started their license to carry policy.
Well, I believe that everybody has a right that is to keep and bear arms, just like the Second Amendment says. When you buy a gun, you're responsible for it.
I believe in just common sense gun safety laws that limit the kinds of guns that people can own and carry.
After the shootings in Santa Fe, El Paso, and most recently Uvalde, all of which occurred in Texas, highlighted the lack of response from the governor whenever events of violence such as these happen, and why events like these continue to occur.
I'm sad that we're stuck in this place that I think that Abbott has put us in, that where we're fighting each other, or we don't have common sense solutions, and we have to watch these parents lose children. We have to be afraid wherever we go.
Republican nominee and gubernatorial incumbent Greg Abbott believes that raising the legal age from 18 to 21 to purchase assault-style rifles would be unconstitutional and opposes red flag laws in the state, while Democratic nominee Beto O'Rourke supports raising the age to buy assault rifles from 18 to 21 and the use of the red flag laws. And while both candidates have two opposing sides on the issue, they both garnered criticism on just how effective the idea of gun control is.
Gun control doesn't work. The biggest safety issue, I think, is not the safety on the gun, it's parenting it.
For Your Choice 2022, I'm Andrea Valdez.
For more insight into how this life and death issue has become such a polarizing topic, let's go to my colleague Alec Grapp, the moderator for our expert panel this evening. Alec?
Thanks, Kyle. I'm Alec Grapp, and I'm joined here with a panel of 3 experts in their field: Dr. Matthew Eshbal-Soha, Professor of Political Science; Dr. Valerie Martinez-Ebers, the Director of Latino and Mexican American Studies, as well as a Professor of Political Science; and Mr. Randy Loftus, the Senior Lecturer at Mayborn School of Journalism. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. So I want to start with a hot button issue across the country and political ideologies: gun control. Dr. Eshbal-Soha, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on the issue?
Well, gun control is a top issue in this election, but keep in mind we are in Texas, and most Texans are very supportive of guns and having the right to have guns in their possession. And so the real question that we want to consider is whether there are voters out there who would go against, say, their tendency to vote Republican, their choice to want to vote in favor of keeping their guns, and vote for a challenger such as Beto O'Rourke in the governor's race. I think there are some voters who are inclined to do that given recent tragedies in the state of Texas and continued gun violence, but it doesn't seem to be the issue, however important, to rise as high as the relevance of inflation and abortion to some voters.
I think he's right in everything that he said. I would say, though, that for Latinos, gun control has become a major issue. I mean, when you think about what happened in El Paso at the Walmart, and of course, most recently, Uvalde, the school, you know, all Latinos were the victims, or primarily Latinos. And I mean, there have been others too, where Latinos were targeted. And then, of course, we had the law enforcement response, which was, in my estimation, horrific in Uvalde. So it has been a rallying issue for Latinos. Nationwide, it's up in the top 5. It even is more important than immigration. And I would guess in Texas, because of those 2 incidents, it's even higher for Latinos in Texas.
And with Beto O'Rourke individually, his statement when he was running for president that he wanted to confiscate some guns didn't play well with a lot of Texans, but at the same time, I'm not sure how many votes that would move in Texas, because I don't think people who were going to be turned off by that were going to vote for him anyway.
So you obviously mentioned something earlier, talking kind of about that you didn't think it was enough to sway the vote. Right now, do you think that's something in the future that it could potentially move? Obviously, you mentioned it being a big issue in the Latino population. So I just want to get a feel from both of you if you think it's something that, like, moving forward, it could potentially start to sway votes.
Yeah, I think, well, this is my prediction for what it's worth. I think Greg Abbott's going to win re-election. I don't think he'll seek another term after this. So this provides a great opportunity for a Republican. He seemed to signal some concern about guns, at least in Uvalde. There is an opportunity for a governor who's not seeking re-election to perhaps push on this issue and get some legislation through. Now, again, we'll wait and see what happens, but I think that there's always that opportunity in Texas, despite being predominantly Republican, predominantly gun rights state. I think there politically may be an opportunity in the next couple of years to see something sensible along those lines.
I agree with Matt. I don't think gun control is an issue that's going to make people change their votes. What I'm thinking more of is among the Latinos who are Democrat, or at least lean Democrat, and Latinos don't always turn out, particularly in Texas. But if they really care about gun control, what might make the difference is they'll turn out, because Beto has made it sort of a line in the sand. Now, I would note he's backed off. He's not going to take our guns. He's asking for reasonable gun control. And so that, you know, he's trying to find a middle ground, because the Latinos also, I mean, they want reasonable gun control. They don't want their guns completely confiscated, obviously.
We are seeing political changes in the largest metro areas in Texas. Democrats now have a strong likelihood of being elected in those locations, and so I think that the fact that demographic is changing toward a more perhaps a stance that is more reasonably attuned to the gun control issue is going to make a difference, because that's not going to stop happening.
You're right, Andy. And you know, one of the important things is when you look at young voters, they do really care about gun control. Now, if they turn out, that might be
Well, that's something that we're certainly going to have to keep an eye on. Thank you, Dr. Martinez-Ebers, for that. And we're going to be back a little bit later in the show. But for now, back to you in Studio B.
Thanks, Alec, and thank you to our panel of experts. Voter turnout across the nation was pretty significant.
Here in Texas, the early voter turnout was good, but not as high as 2020 or 2018, which were both record turnouts. It seems that a sense of apathy has set in, at least in the early voting model. The midterms are known for fewer voters than the years with presidential elections, so there is some question as to whether or not 2018 was just unusual.
Covering an election certainly means watching the numbers, but it also has an involved effort to present a balanced report of the events. One of the most respected newsrooms in Texas is that of the Texas Tribune, which launched in 2009 and is supported by only by member donations. It also boasts the largest state house news bureau in the United States. Let's join NTTV's Austin Hedgecoth at the Texas Tribune. Austin?
Thanks, Andrea. You're right about that. Covering an election is a massive undertaking. I'm here at the Texas Tribune with Matthew Watkins, the managing editor here. Matthew, for the viewers back home in Denton who may not be as familiar with the Tribune, can you explain a little bit about what the work y'all do here is and why it's so important?
Sure, yeah, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan news site. We cover Texas politics and public policy, and basically the idea is we give our work out for free. You can read it for free on our website, or we give it out to newspapers around the state to publish. The idea is that state government, state politics affect the lives of pretty much every Texan in a lot of different ways, and a lot of the news organizations that have covered that have kind of scaled back in recent years, and we really want to kind of elevate that news and get it in front of as many people as possible so people can be informed and engaged about the work that is being done in their name.
Very nice. Now moving back to tonight's election, early voting numbers were down across the state, which was shocking considering the higher expectations for voter turnout this year. However, we all know how things can change on election night. So what voting trends are you seeing here in the newsroom? Is it anything unusual, anything that might explain what happened during early voting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that things are going pretty smoothly on election day. The numbers in the early voting were down compared to 2018, which was kind of record turnout for Texas. But they're higher than 2014 and higher than the kind of the average in the past. So still a decent turnout and things like that. What we're seeing today is, a lot of lines at the polls, a pretty decent turnout as well. I don't think we will reach that 2018 high mark, but, still seeing a decent amount of engagement from voters today.
And then before we hand the broadcast back to the team in Denton, I've got one last question focusing on voting trends. So one common way, politicians try to boost their chance of victory is by targeting specific voting groups. In this year's midterm, which voting groups do you think will play the most crucial role?
Sure, I think one important one is the Hispanic vote. There's been a lot of attention on that, both statewide and in South Texas in particular. That's a demographic that has traditionally voted Democrat and has been an area of strength for the Democratic Party. But this, in recent years, that trend has gone a little bit more toward the Republican side. And so Democrats in particular, not just in this election, but in future elections, really need to regain that vote and show some strength there. That's a big one. And of course, with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, people are also looking to see whether that decision and the banning of abortion in Texas brings more women to the polls, more people to kind of vote who are upset about that decision. We'll know the answer soon.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Make sure to stick around because we'll be back from the state capitol later in the show with more. But for now, it's back to you in Denton.
Thanks, Austin. Now let's go back to Studio A, where our Noticias colleagues Mauricio Ortiz Segura and Leslie Juarez have an update for our Spanish language viewers. Mauricio and Leslie.
Gracias, Andrea y Austin, y bienvenidos de nuevo a la cobertura de las elecciones de medio término en español. Vamos a pasar a echar un vistazo a los números hasta ahora. En la carrera para gobernador se encuentra actualmente el candidato Greg Abbott en la delantera con un 55.45%, mientras que su contrincante demócrata Beto O'Rourke se encuentra en un 43.47%.
Y también tenemos números para vicegobernador republicano Dan Patrick, que está buscando su tercer término como vicegobernador. Tiene 53.75% del voto con 294 votos en total. Y demócrata Mike Collier tiene 43.84% del voto con 99.929 votos. Y también tenemos números para procurador general con demócrata Rochelle Garza con 43.39% del voto con 98.575 votos total, y republicano Ken Paxton con 53.30% con 1.021 votos total. Y es muy interesante ver el cambio de votos, ¿verdad, Leslie?
Sí, así es, Mauricio, especialmente porque hay diferentes políticas que se están siendo consideradas. Uno de los temas de mayor interés es el control de las armas en el estado, y nuestra reportera Lorena Rivas nos habla del impacto que tragedias como el tiroteo del Paso y Uvalde recientemente causan en la comunidad.
El aumento de la violencia con las armas a la comunidad hispana se hace preguntar a muchas personas qué es lo que les espera en el futuro. Ha pasado más de 3 años desde el tiroteo en El Paso, Texas, donde Patrick Crusius tomó la vida de 23 personas. Esto se ha sido considerado uno de los ataques más violentos contra los hispanos en los Estados Unidos en esta historia moderna.
Esa persona que fue y hizo el tiroteo en El Paso fue una persona de aquí del norte de Texas. Entonces eso me deja saber de mí que no es un problema que está lejos de mí. Está aquí cerca y puede pasar conmigo.
Y para Ruth, el reciente tiroteo en Uvalde, Texas, que cobró la vida de 19 niños y 2 maestros, es algo que la afectó de una manera personal.
Mi mamá es maestra en una escuela primaria, y cuando veo noticias así en donde alguien entró a una escuela primaria y no nomás mató niños, pero también maestras, o sea, también me da miedo en una nota personal que esa puede ser mi mamá un día.
Con las elecciones de medio término y el control de armas siendo uno de los temas de mayor interés, el presidente de la Unión Hispana en la Universidad del Norte de Texas está animando a la comunidad hispana a votar.
Si nosotros no estamos diciendo a los candidatos, hey, esto es lo que está pasando en mi comunidad, esto es lo que está pasando en mi familia, ellos nunca van a entender ni van a hacer nada. Pero si ellos no hacen nada, es nuestro deber de sacarlo de su posición y poner a alguien que sí va a hacer algo.
Aunque esos eventos están separados por el tiempo, distancia y el motivo, los une con las comunidades que fueron impactadas. Reportando para NTTV Noticias, soy Lorena Rivas.
Vamos a enlazarnos con nuestra reportera Noemi Sánchez, que se encuentra en vivo desde la capital de estado en Austin.
Noemi, cuéntanos, ¿qué es lo que estás viviendo en el Capitolio en estos momentos y qué es lo que has podido percibir?
Bueno, chicos, déjenles digo una cosa, hemos estado aquí desde la mañana y la gente de Austin ha salido a votar, y una de las cosas que notamos fue que habían unos temas que fueron importantes para esta comunidad, como el tema de la inmigración, el acceso a aborto y el acceso a armas de fuego. Y bueno, los centros de votación ya han cerrado y ahora lo que queda es ver los resultados, ¿verdad? Y les tendré más información sobre eso más adelante en mi siguiente intervención. Reportando desde el Capitolio, regresamos al estudio.
Gracias, Noemi, por tu actualización. Más adelante nos estaremos enlazando de nuevo.
Así es, pero por ahora vamos a regresar con Andrea y Austin para seguir la programación en inglés. Chicos, ¿qué nos tienen?
Thanks, Leslie, Mauricio. Regardless of your politics, one of the staples of election night is the watch party.
NTTV's Armando Berry is with the Denton County Republicans. Armando, what is going on at the party right now?
Hey Austin, things are a lot livelier here at the Scout, and a big reason for that are for all the people who came to see
this man right here. He is the Republican candidate for House 63, Mr. Ben Bumgarner. Mr. Bumgarner, your district mainly consists of the Flower Mound and Justin area. What are some of the things that you hope to improve on locally?
So our Western district, we're growing like a weed, and we're going to probably have the middle of the Metroplex out on our Western corridor. And out east, we got to make sure we're not getting stale, and we can give them all the tools in the bag that they can to keep businesses running, because we're in a recession right now, and we don't want to take away from the businesses. We don't want to make sure that our families are going stale. So we got to get Texas strong. We got to make sure our businesses are going. We got to make sure that our police and fire are well taken care of as well. Public safety is number one for us, and that's what we're going to do for the district.
And I assume Election Day has to be a culmination of a lot of hard work for you and your team. What has the campaign process been like for you so far up to this point?
Man, we've been grinding. I have to say, I probably knocked over 7,000 doors personally. I served on the Flower Mound Town Council for the last 3 years, so I made a lot of good connections in the community. I'm very well plugged into my community here in Flower Mound and just around the surrounding areas. Me and my wife are philanthropists in the area, and we give to our community, and that's just one of the things that we want to do is give back, and I just wanted to answer this call and give back to our community at the next level.
Well, Mr. Ben Bumgarner, thank you for taking time to talk to me. We're going to send it to my colleague, Olivia Thompson, who's at the Democratic Watch Party in Dallas. Olivia, what's going on in downtown Dallas?
It seems we are experiencing some technical difficulties with Olivia, so we'll check back in with you later in the night. For now, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back, we will head down the road to Austin and the state capitol.
And we'll bring you the latest numbers, so stay with us.
Imagine it's ice cream day at the office.
Numbers.
Recovery. Numbers.
And everyone from the day before voted for their favorite flavor. Everyone but you. You decided not to vote. The flavor they picked isn't the one that you wanted. But can you really complain? Shh. Now imagine that with an elected official.
Choose not to vote. Choose not to be heard. Get registered today.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, man. Oh, sorry.
Near Sanctus Spiritus.
I've got a good feeling about this one.
Hey, Maddie, miss me?
Wait, Bud?
What was that all about?
An old friend.
An old friend?
Good to see you, brother. What the hell are you doing?
That's your lucky day.
Welcome back to Your Choice 2022. My colleague Olivia Thompson is spending the evening in Dallas with the Democrats at their watch party. Olivia, how are things in Dallas?
Thanks, Austin. Just like the Republicans, the Democratic watch party is loud and live here tonight. I'm currently standing with Christy Noble, who is the chair of the Dallas County Democratic Party. How are you this evening now that the event has begun?
I am great now that it's begun. We're happy with the numbers at this point, and we're just going to have a good time watching them roll in.
Nice. And you actually opened up this event with some very good news for Democrats regarding Beto. Can you share with us what that is?
Yeah, what we've seen so far from the AP's reporting that Beto is at 57% with the counties that are reporting so far. Now, that is just some of the larger counties. Harris isn't reporting yet because obviously they were open until 8 because of some problems. And honestly, I don't know how many of the smaller rural counties are reporting. But at this point, we're going to be optimistic, and that's a great number at this point.
Right. And lastly, we want to know, as far as polls being mostly closed at 7 p.m., what is the purpose and what purpose does the Democratic Watch Party serve for those who are trying to keep high political spirits?
Well, you know, we have had so many different groups who have been working with us to get out the vote. We've had TOP working with us, Planned Parenthood, campaigns across the county and across the state. And with all of that hard work, we just want to give a place for all Democrats to come together to celebrate our wins and to be around like-minded people. That's what we need after a very long, hard cycle.
Well, guys, this is a lively experience and surely a good environment for these people to be. We'll be with you next time when we come back after break. But for the moment, that's what I have. And Dallas, let's send it back to the studio to Austin and Andrea.
Thanks, Olivia. We do have some early numbers in for you. We currently have Abbott leading at 55.45%, Beto following behind with 43.47%. Lieutenant Governor, we have Patrick at 53.65%, with Collier at 43.84%. In the Attorney General's race, we have Paxton leading at 53.3% and Garza at 43.39%. And here in Denton for Prop B, we have 70.26% for the ratification of Prop B and 29.74% against. So as we're seeing, it is quite close in the state races. However, here in Denton, we are looking at a pretty significant turn for Prop B.
One question in every election is, where are the swing votes, the counties or blocks of votes that really make a difference in the outcome?
Madison Myers is now standing by with a look at the 6 counties in Texas that can really and do make a difference. Madison?
Thanks, guys. Early voting in all 6 of our swing counties are good. Totals are coming in. Let's look at where each one stands now in the key race for governor. In Dallas County, the current vote stands at 35% for Abbott and 64% for Beto. In Travis County, home to our state capital of Austin, the current vote stands at 24% for Abbott and 75% for Beto's. Those 4 counties voted Republican or red in the 2020 election. Now the other 2 swing counties, Denton and Tarrant, voted blue or Democrat in 2020. Currently, the voting trend looks like this. In Tarrant County, the current vote stands at 51% for Abbott and 48% for Beto. And here in Denton County, the current vote stands at 55% for Abbott and 48% for Beto. Now for Harris County and Bexar County, there's issues with the polling center, so we haven't gotten those numbers in yet. I'll have more for you guys as the evening progresses and let you know any updates. For now, that's all I have. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Madison. Well, certainly both men hope to call Travis County and Austin in particular home later this evening. NTTV's Nomi Sanchez is in Austin reporting from the state capitol and has more on that famous building and other election information. Nomi?
Thanks, Andrea. Well, we've been here all morning, and let me tell you something. The people of Austin definitely made their voice heard today, and with many different kinds of people coming in and out of the polls, here's one you wouldn't expect. Her name is Regina, and she's homeless.
I was always told by my mother, if you don't vote, you don't count. People have lost their homes and apartments. I'm one of them. I'm currently living here in Austin, Texas, in the Salvation Army, because I lost my job.
Despite her conditions, Regina took a bus to the Sam Houston State Office building and voted.
She says that to her, it's important to participate in change and reform, and that sense of civic duty is strong amongst other Austin residents as well.
I always vote. I mean, it's a right that I take very seriously.
I had the opportunity to speak to other voters who discussed the issues most important to them.
Making sure that women get the right to safe abortions is very important to me.
Probably women's rights to for their health care. I think taking away rights that are threatened right now is the important issue.
In Texas, incumbent Greg Abbott is being challenged for his seat by Democrat Beto O'Rourke, and the possibility of the GOP taking over the House of Representatives is at stake. Many voters question what the future of Texas will look like. So while it's too late to vote for these midterms for next election season, make sure to
Vote, 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 vote.
And as the Capitol doors close their doors for the day, we'll have more updates on the election as information comes in. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Nomi. As we head into the winter season, nobody will forget the terrible and deadly storm that hit Texas last year. Officially, the storm and its aftermath lasted from February 13th through the 17th and claimed 246 lives. But many estimates put that number of deaths much higher because Texas went without heat and power for so long during the frigid conditions. The failure of the power grid was top of mind for a long time, but what impact did it have on the election or the questions of political accountability? Our issues anchor Kyle Orr has more. Kyle?
That's right, Austin. Besides the human cost, the storm was the most expensive natural disaster in Texas history. But the power grid is only part of the state's infrastructure problems. NTTV's Kelsey Clark looks at how Texas has responded.
According to the Energy Information Administration, Texas is the largest producer of energy in the United States. Despite this, in February 2021, a winter storm caused the Texas power grid to fail temporarily. Some Texans went days without lighting or heat.
The lights went out and we didn't know whether it was going to be, a day or two or whatever. So obviously we didn't have any heating because we didn't have gas heating. And so after, I think, 1 or 2 days of that, we realized that we needed to probably get out of there and find somewhere that actually had heat.
Texas is predominantly powered by fossil fuels, and there has been some speculation as to how the grid comprised of more than 500 generators failed. A prevailing theory is how the deregulation of energy production in Texas has failed to yield long-term investment.
In and across Texas, it's a highly privatized and deregulated market with very short-term goals. There is no foresight with relation to investment in ensuring that the infrastructure improves and how to ensure that, in case of such calamities, how to make sure that we protect the consumers and make sure that energy reaches them.
Many Texans remember the effects of the blackout last year and must consider what plans candidates have for the grid in the future.
One big argument in the debate of the state's infrastructure is how to pay for it. Certainly that is always a big question facing politicians, how to raise money to support their ideas and fund programs. For example, tonight in Denton, voters are deciding whether to decriminalize marijuana. One argument of those in favor will say this will save money because police could concentrate on serious crimes rather than low-level offenses, thus putting resources to better use. Let's go to my colleague Alec Rapp and our panel of experts for their thoughts on these and other key issues. Alec?
Thanks, Kyle. I want to jump right into things and start with something that's on the front of voters' minds here in the state of Texas, and that is the power grid. We've had 2 winters where we've had rolling blackouts, power outages, and many lives lost. So Professor Loftus, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on the issue, especially surrounding the power grid here in Texas?
Well, after the big storm of February 2021, there was a lot of misinformation being thrown around. A lot of people said this was the storm of the century, and so no one should hold the grid operators responsible. That, in fact, was not true. It's happened time and time again. I've documented this in some stories that I've written. The leadership of Texas has simply failed to upgrade the grid to maintain the standards that we are expecting.
What do you guys think on that?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, having lived I was in the dorm during this blackout that you're talking about. I mean, when the power grid went down, we didn't have any electricity for 3 days in the dorm. It was an experience that I would never forget, and so it's really on my mind. But I have to say, I don't know if young voters are thinking about the grid.
Well, I think a lot of elections, unfortunately, are about ideology and those sorts of issues as opposed to competent governance. And I think that this is one example of that. I mean, if we really want to elect individuals who will be in a position to ensure that we have power in winter storms or during the summer when it gets really hot, we need to have competent people in those positions. And then if those, if we don't achieve that, then voters are in a position to hold our elected officials accountable. Unfortunately, those don't tend to drive vote choice. It becomes issues unrelated to that, but more about, say, guns or abortion or other issues that are certainly important, but not about whether a government is competent to be able to solve these issues.
Definitely, Dr. Martinez-Evers. I was also in the dorm during that time frame, and it certainly was a difficult time losing power for 3 days, and obviously it was one of the bigger storms we've had in recent history. I do want to move local to Denton. So one thing that my colleague Kyle talked about earlier in the show was Denton is looking at decriminalizing marijuana. And so the supporters of this believe that it's something that could kind of reduce the strain on police and the kind of the resources that they have. It's going to take a little bit, you're not going to have as much money as that you're going to have to spend on that, is what they're saying. So what do you guys think about that?
I actually think that we are following a trend that is happening all throughout the United States where we are decriminalizing the use of marijuana. It's not, I don't think, unexpected in a town that's got a significant college population that there would be support for this.
I think one of the things that's happening with that is it's not just decriminalizing the drug, it's decriminalizing a huge class of people. Many, many thousands of people have been given criminal records because of this kind of offense that actually causes no harm whatsoever. And this has been a major issue in maintaining the inequities in our society.
So obviously you both kind of touched on the fact it's a college town, so that's another thing. Do you think this is an issue that could drive out younger voters in the area?
Yeah, I mean, when we want to see more voter turnout, when we see higher voter turnout in local elections, it tends to be issues like this. So in 2014 in Denton, we banned fracking, we liberalized liquor sales. I think this is that sort of issue that rings true. I think it appeals to young voters, sense of libertarianism and just wanting to say, hey, this is not a big issue and let's move beyond this. Certainly if a police officer is just letting somebody move on, we're going to save money there as well.
Well, Dr. Esposada, thank you, all of you, for your insight there. We're going to be back in just a little bit, but for now, we're going to go to Andrea and Austin in Studio B.
Thanks, Alec, and thank you to our panel members. Well, we heard from political experts. Now let's head to the Social Media Center to see what is being discussed online. NTTV's Sydney Deshawn and Isabella Quintanilla have been watching the platforms and joining us now. Ladies, what's the online chatter?
Thanks, Andy. Well, it has been a lively evening so far. Earlier, we got reports from Harris and Bell County that they were receiving delays for voting due to machines being down.
Yeah, and in Harris County, they actually have 100 voting machines available, but less than 10 were working. And earlier today, we can see that over 1,000 people were waiting in line to cast their vote.
A very similar situation in Bell County, where earlier this morning, voting machines were down, preventing people from going in and getting their vote in.
Yeah, and in Bell County, they got a court order to extend their voting until 8 p.m. today, and we just found out that Harris County is doing the same thing as well. So if you are in line, make sure you stay there and cast your vote because every vote does matter.
Now, another big issue we've been seeing a lot about online has been the Texas power grid. That has been a big issue in this midterm election season. Texas has their own power grid, and it is vital for grid operators to keep up with the grid, the grid as the demand for energy goes up. Now, Texas has their own power grid. Now, as the demand for energy increases, grid operators must keep up with that.
Yeah, and people are frustrated with Governor Greg Abbott because he has been in office for 8 years now, and he hasn't spoke much on the issue with the power grid, but we have seen that on social media, Beto is trying to implement a 6-step plan to help with the issue of the power grid. We can see here that he is wanting to fully weatherize the grid, connect Texas to the national grid, increase transmission and storage capacity, expand energy efficiency programs, stop price gouging Texans, and provide energy bill relief to families. So this is something that voters are definitely excited about.
Yes, many voters were upset with Greg Abbott after the 2021 snowstorm left many voters, people in Texas, without heat or clean water. They were very upset about that, and rightfully so. But in 2021, after the snowstorm, Governor Greg Abbott did sign into law a couple bills that helped stabilize the energy grid and improve its reliability. Now, they had a small victory with that in 2022 with the snowstorm, which left many people more confident in Greg Abbott, but Democrats are still pushing for Greg Abbott to do more.
Exactly, Isabella.
And now, Andy and Austin, this is just some of what we are hearing on social media.
Yes, we'll have more for you later in the broadcast. For now, back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Sydney and Isabella. When we come back, I'll have an update on the numbers for several races and a look at how the vote on decriminalizing pot is going in Denton.
And we will head back to Austin for a look at the statewide election process with our partners at the Texas Tribune and NTTV's Austin Hedgecott. Stay with us for more of Your Choice 2022.
You got numbers for me?
Hey, listen to my flow to save some H2O. This my water rhyme, and this is how it goes. First, turn off the sink and take some time to think. When you waste water, our supply shrinks. When you take a shower, not more than an hour. Shoot for 10 minutes and save water power. Use a reusable bottle, smart like Aristotle. Ditch all the plastic and be a role model. And that was my H2O flow. Please remember how it goes, because if you don't, Earth will go, oh no!
At a time when misinformation is all too common on social media, we take great pride in bringing you the news that matters, that impacts your family, news you can trust. Local broadcast journalists bring you the facts, covering the stories breaking in our community and across the globe. Text TV to 52886 and let Congress know you depend on local journalism. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
No, I've been feeling gross all week. Maybe we should go get a COVID test. But I already have all 3 of my shots. Yeah, but you can still get it. I mean, maybe we should go get one just in case. Yeah, you're right. We have that party and all that. Yeah. Where do I even get tested here? Let me check.
You can find free COVID testing sites at the University Union, room 381 on weekdays, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and on weekends, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., and at Chestnut Hall, room 120, from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. You have to show the QR code given to you when you arrive for an appointment. Tests take no longer than 10 minutes to complete. Results will be sent through text or email within the next 48 hours.
I got a negative COVID test. Me too. Oh my god, let's go to the party. Yes. Let's go.
Hi, I'm
Kennedy, the president of Black Film Club, and what I love about BFC is the atmosphere and the members. The family feel that we have in our club is really genuine. What about you, Bree?
My name is Bree. I'm the vice president of Black Film Club, and what I love about Black Film Club is it's a small but close, like, little family. You know, I feel like a lot of times when you go to a PWI, it's hard to find like a Black community that share the same interests in you. So I'm very blessed and grateful to have, found my family.
What I would say I like about Black Film Club is obviously the environment that it sets for everybody. I love the officers. I've been rocking with basically all of them since day one, since freshman year. We all came in here at the same time, all got involved with Black Film Club at the same time. So it's been a nice community to grow with, and then seeing new members come, seeing them get interested, seeing how they like Black film, teaching them what we can teach them before we leave, and giving them the mantle to take over. It's a blessing.
Good evening and welcome back to Your Choice 2022. Let's run the numbers as we have them. Due to machine errors in Harris and Bexar County, no information is available. Dallas County 35%, Abbott, Beto 64, Travis County 24% for Abbott, 75 for Beto, and Tarrant County 51, Abbott 46 Beto, and Denton County 55, Abbott 43% Beto.
Texas is a powerful force in national politics, and how the state functions can influence far beyond its borders. NTTV's Austin Hedgecoth is in the newsroom of the Texas Tribune with more on how the state is trending and the impact we have around the country. Austin?
Thanks, Andrea. With numbers starting to roll in from across the state, things are heating up here in Austin. I'm joined now by Ian Mitra, the senior managing editor here at the Texas Tribune. Ian, with the 10th largest economy in the world, it's unquestionable that Texas has a lot of pull here at home in the States. Could you elaborate a little bit on the leadership role Texas plays in American politics and explain what tonight's election could mean on the national scale?
Yeah, it's as you mentioned, one of the 10th largest economies in the world. It's just a huge impact too, and that's not just because obviously the oil and gas industry is huge here and it has impacts across the country, but just the amount of money here too in politics. And I think that's what a lot of people, a lot of hopefuls in 24 are going to be looking towards, and to see how Texas is going to go. Obviously, it's hugely pivotal in the Republican race. If Greg Abbott wins today, obviously the immediate question for around him will be, what's he going to do in 2024? There's a lot of speculation that he has presidential ambitions. There's also Senator Ted Cruz, who ran, of course, in 2016. Was and also his Senate term is up in 2024, but he has eyes on the White House as well. What's going to happen there? So I think there's going to be a lot of speculation going on around those two in particular, and obviously with what former President Donald Trump announces is going to have a huge impact in this too. But there's a lot of money to be made in Texas for fundraising campaigns. There's a lot of big donors, a lot of influence here. So I think as we look ahead for the election in 2024, Texas has a outsized power there.
And then, considering how impactful Texas is in the grand scheme of American politics, Greg Abbott ran a fairly quiet campaign this year. He was outraised. He didn't show up in public very much. The sponsored ads seemed more to boost himself than rather attack his opponents. Why do you think Abbott and his team took such a different approach this cycle?
I think he and his campaign were very targeted in kind of what they were kind of focusing on. Obviously, border security is something that they really focused on with a lot of their ads, and so they really targeted a lot of their advertising towards that. Obviously, there were still some targeted ads towards Abbott's opponent, Beto O'Rourke, but really they saw a message that really resonated with people. And Abbott's message was pretty consistent. He talked about border security. He talked about the economy. These are things that seem to be really strong for Republicans and weak for Democrats. Not only in Texas but nationally. And I think hitting that consistent message is probably, was a strategy that was a very concerted strategy to kind of, resonate a message that was consistent and, resonated with his supporters and people who he may be able to turn, who may have voted for O'Rourke in a different climate. But with the economy the way it's going and the concerns about it, it seems like that was a strong message for him to stay on.
All right, thank you, Ian. I'll be back with more later in the show, but for now, it's back to y'all in Denton.
Thanks, Austin. Well, one of the most divisive issues, not only here in Texas, but across and even on an international scale, is border security. The Texas-Mexico border is a focal point. Kyle Orr is at the Issues Monitor with more. Kyle?
Thanks, Andy. There is no question borders in states like Texas, Florida, and Arizona are areas of concern for everyone, regardless of political ideology. NTTV's Peter Rabel has more on the current state of affairs.
In the months leading up to the 2022 midterm elections, Texas Republicans began their push to bring attention to the immigration issue by sending new migrants to shelter cities such as New York City.
And so when I was at this meeting back in April, I said, listen, I'm going to help you out. Because next week, the following week, I am going to start busing them to Washington, D.C.
The move has been highly criticized by Democrats in and out of the state, including challenger Beto O'Rourke, who took to Twitter to advocate for common-sense solutions that most Texans agree on. Beto's opinion on the issue has been echoed by one Texas student, Juan Grimaldo, who sees the immigration issue as overly politicized.
As a point of view from someone who is a DACA recipient, who has lived close to 20 years in America and 5 years in Mexico, it has to be fair that, you know, everybody has some sort of access to come over here, to study, to work, to start businesses.
Other concerns facing legislators at the border have included public backlash over the Texas Border Control agent who was photographed last year whipping Haitian migrants while on horseback, which were criticized by some as offensively harsh treatment. Moving forward from these issues is now in the hands of voters in the midterm elections who must decide what policies and what candidates they choose to support.
We see change every single day. So, you know, we can't stay in the same place forever. And at some point, somebody's going to have to do something about it. So all of this will come down to what the Texans want when it comes to picking our future. Governors, teachers, etc.
For Your Choice 2022, I'm Peter Rabel.
Let's head directly back to our panel of experts and my colleague Alec Rapp for more on this issue. Alec?
Thanks, Kyle. The image of a wall, what it means on a practical basis, but also a symbolic one, has made it about much more than just economics and immigration, but also about social and global concerns politically. Dr. Martinez-Ebers, I want to start with you on this issue. What has the issue of immigration meant, not just here in the state of Texas, but also on a national scale?
Well, obviously, immigration reform has been on the national agenda for many years, and the Congress has never been, they haven't been able to pass legislation in some time, proposed a lot, and some of it very draconian, but none of it has passed. And so what has happened then is the states have, particularly border states, have taken their own initiatives to try to address the immigration, specifically undocumented immigration.
So one thing I do want to kind of touch on is there's an assumption out there that all Latino voters are pro-immigrant. And have you found that to be the case in your studies, or have you found it to be the opposite?
Well, that's a really good question. I wouldn't say they're anti-immigrant, but I would say immigration is a wedge issue in terms of what they think should happen. Now, Latinos are pretty united in their support for DACA, which are children who are brought to the United States, you know, by their parents, too young to know what was going on. There's support for that, but everything else it really depends. If you live in the valley, particularly of Texas, in Rio Grande Valley, they're pretty against undocumented immigration, and they want much tougher border security, so they support the wall. Most of the Latinos who live in the Rio Grande Valley, many of them work for Homeland Security or in construction and are involved in building that wall that the governor reinitiated that Trump started. He's actually building a physical wall down there, and they work in construction there. So yeah, it depends. If your job relies on it, and if you've been here generations, and this is another thing I think that many people forget. In the United States, and especially in Texas, Latinos are not an immigrant population. The large majority are U.S. born, and the further they get away from the immigration experience, it gets a lot more complicated for them.
Yeah, and nationally, the issue is, again, it's been 20 plus years. George W. Bush proposed a guest worker program, was seen in today's standards quite moderate, but it didn't go forward. And it's becoming more of a political issue as opposed to an issue that's driven by policy solutions, because both parties can play up, you know, how most Americans support immigration, but then it certainly is a wedge issue for some voting populations, and we've seen how presidential candidates, in particular Donald Trump, has basically risen to national stature by proclaiming the need for a border wall and being very negative on the issue of immigration.
And there's an immigration issue that affects this university directly. UNT had been offering in-state resident tuition to DACA students, to children who were brought here to the United States as young children. Because of a lawsuit filed by some opponents of this policy, UNT can't do that anymore. So instead, they're not charging out-of-state tuition to anyone. The hit on the UNT budget has been about $3 million this year. That's a lot of money being spent for what may be simply a symbolic protest of immigration policy.
And remember that Texas was originally the very first to pass the Dreamers Act. Right. So even though the case was UNT specific, all the public institutions were watching the case, and they're worried about what's going to happen too, because, you know, the legislature may very well have repeal that Dreamers Act, and then we're going to have a lot of students left in limbo here at North Texas, but throughout the state in higher ed.
Yeah, and nationally, this is an issue where the American people support it. We've had support from both political parties, but again, we're unwilling to take this policy step to address this solvable issue and instead keep it as a political wedge issue to further short-term re-election goals.
I think many times the emphasis has been on border security rather than comprehensive immigration reform. And because border security, for whatever reason, resonates emotionally more than some other things do, but DACA has always been popular, and I don't understand why they haven't done anything about it.
And the facts don't support the idea that,
Well, thank you for that insight. And we're going to be back later in the show with a couple other hot button issues on the ballot today, not just in the state of Texas, but nationally as well. But for now, back to Andrea and Austin in Studio B.
Thanks, Alec. Well, it's party time, or at least time to check in with Armando Berry and Olivia Thompson, who are at two political watch parties.
Let's begin in Flower Mound, where Armando Berry is with the Denton County Republicans watching the votes come in. Armando?
Hey Andrea, welcome back to the Scout, where the GOP watch party is still rocking here in Flower Mound. Beside me now is Republican County Chairman Brent Hagenboo. Mr. Hagenboo, Texas has been consistently conservative since 1995, but over the past couple years we've seen the races become a little bit more competitive. Where do you see Texas politics trending in the near future?
Well, thank you, Armando. Where I see it going is where we see it going tonight. Things are really turning. I think people have lost confidence in Democrat policies and are more and more embracing our Republican conservative principles and the ability of our strong leaders to lead and represent them well going forward and keep this a great place to live.
What are a few of the main statewide issues that the GOP has focused on, and how has leadership tackled them so far?
Yeah, I think some of the things we're working on are keeping the economy strong, which they've done a great job of. We need to take care of the border, and I think our elected officials will do that as they're elected. We need to look at keeping our schools focused on what will improve our kids' future for them, and those are some of the key things.
Mr. Hagenboo, thank you for taking time to talk to me. That's all I have from the Scout in Flower Mound. So let's take it down to Dallas, where my colleague Olivia Thompson is in Dallas with the Democratic Watch Party. Olivia?
Thanks, Armando. The mood here at the Democratic Watch Party is very vibrant and lively. The music has picked up. The DJ has played Beyonce, so you know it's a really good time. Conversations are brewing of introductions. Many pictures are being taken here. Also, Benton Jones at the beginning of this event announced that he has officially won the District 100 for the Texas House. He's also helped sponsor this event along with the Dallas County Democrats. Now, let's go back to NTTV and our studios in Denton for more election coverage. Austin?
Thanks, Olivia. NTTV's Noemi Sanchez is standing by now from the beautiful state capitol in Austin. Noemi, it's about time the Capitol will be closing its doors for the evening, but certainly will be open and ready for business tomorrow. What do you have for us tonight?
Well, Austin, this is without a doubt one of the most important elections of this year, where many people have come out for change and reform. And we talked to a lot of voters today, and one thing that we noticed is that many thought that abortion rights were one of the main issues in this year's election. And while of course polls are already closed, and all that's left is to see the results after today's elections, but of course we will keep you updated on those details in the upcoming days. Reporting from Austin, I'm Noemi Sanchez.
Thanks, Noemi. We're going to hand it over to our colleagues in Studio A, Mauricio Ortiz Segura and Leslie Juarez, for more election coverage of our Spanish language viewers. Mauricio and Leslie.
Gracias, Austin, y bienvenidos de regreso a su cobertura en español. Yo soy Leslie Juárez.
Y yo soy Mauricio Ortiz Segura.
Vamos a ver cómo se han movido los votos desde nuestra última actualización.
Tenemos nuevos números para gobernador. Nada más tenemos 25% de los votos, pero el republicano Greg Abbott tiene 51% del voto, mientras el demócrata Beto O'Rourke tiene 47.9% del voto.
Así es, y por otra posición de procurador general tenemos 20% de los votos reportados, y en la delantera se encuentra el republicano Ken Paxton con un 51.3%, mientras que su contrincante Rochelle Garza con un 45.8%. En la posición de procurador general, un 20% de los votos están reportados, como dije anteriormente, pero pasemos a la posición de vicegobernador y tenemos hasta ahora un 24% de estos votos reportados. En la delantera se encuentra el republicano Dan Patrick con 51.8% y su contrincante Mike Collier con un 45.9%. Pero tendremos más actualizaciones más adelante. Ahora vamos a pasar a otro de los temas que se ha convertido en un tema muy importante en este ciclo electoral, y ha sido la seguridad fronteriza y la inmigración.
Nuestro reportero Sebastián Nava tiene más información sobre cómo los dos candidatos a gobernador ven el tema de la inmigración.
Uno de los temas más debatidos en todo el estado de Texas es la inmigración y la seguridad fronteriza. Un nuevo informe de la Patrulla Fronteriza de Estados Unidos afirma que más de 2.4 millones de inmigrantes fueron arrestados a lo largo de la frontera entre Estados Unidos y México. Los dos candidatos en la carrera por la gobernación se han posicionado en extremos opuestos del tema. El gobernador titular Greg Abbott ha prometido más de $4,000 millones para la Operation Lone Star, un plan que inició la construcción del muro fronterizo, envió a la Guardia Nacional a la frontera y financió viajes en autobús para enviar migrantes a ciudades como Nueva York, Chicago y Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. Juan Grimaldo, un estudiante de la Universidad del Norte de Texas bajo el programa DACA, ha manifestado su oposición a la operación.
Acerca de los inmigrantes que son movidos en autobús de estado a estado, yo pienso que es algo de falta de respeto, es algo que en realidad nos afecta a todos.
Pero para ganar las elecciones, el candidato demócrata Beto O'Rourke tendrá que ganar el voto latino en los condados fronterizos de Texas, los mismos condados que ven una afluencia de inmigrantes todos los días y comparten preocupaciones sobre la seguridad fronteriza.
Ellos están casi siempre expuestos a este tipo de violencia y ellos quieren cambio. Ahora, para ellos el cambio es cerrar la frontera y mantener las dos naciones divididas, obviamente. Entonces ahí es donde se crea la división entre pro-Republican y demócrata.
Reportando para NTTV Noticias, soy Sebastián Nava.
Como mencionamos anteriormente, este ciclo electoral presenta algunos de los cargos más importantes del Estado, incluidos el de fiscal general, vicegobernador e incluso el cargo de gobernador. Pero, ¿cómo asegura el Estado sus votos y los resultados de las elecciones?
Los funcionarios del estado de Texas prueben las máquinas de votación 2 veces antes de las elecciones y una vez después de las elecciones para asegurarse de que estén en condiciones adecuadas. Después de registrar su voto, puede verificar por sí mismo que su boleta se contó visitando el sitio web de la secretaria del estado de Texas. Luego, después de que las urnas cerraron a las 7 p.m., los resultados deben ser certificados por el Tribunal de Comisionados del Condado antes del 22 de noviembre y por el Secretario de Estado antes del 12 de diciembre.
Estas son todas las actualizaciones que tenemos por ahora.
Vamos a regresar con Austin y Andrea para ver qué viene a continuación.
Gracias, chicos. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will run the numbers for you and take a look at those 6 key swing counties in Texas.
And we will head into the world of social media for an update on what is swirling around out there. Stay with us.
All right, lay the numbers on me.
President of Black Film Club, and what I love about BFC is the atmosphere and the members. The family feel that we have in our club is really genuine. What about you, Bree?
My name is Bree. I'm the Vice President of Black Film Club, and what I love about Black Film Club is it's a small but close, like, little family. You know, I feel like a lot of times when you go to a PWI, it's hard to find like a Black community that share the same interests in you. So I'm very blessed and grateful to have, found my family.
What I would say I like about Black Film Club is obviously the environment that it sets for everybody. I love the officers. I've been rocking with basically all of them since day one, since freshman year. We all came in here at the same time, all got involved with Black Film Club at the same time. So it's been a nice community to grow with, and then seeing new members come, seeing them get interested, seeing how they like Black film, teaching them what we can teach them before we leave, and giving them the mantle to take over. It's a blessing.
Near Sanctus Spiritus.
I've got a good feeling about this one.
Hey, Maddie, miss me?
Wait, Bud?
What was that all about?
An old friend.
An old friend?
Good to see you, brother. What the hell are you doing?
That's your lucky day.
Six. 7.
Hey, didn't see you there. Just finished my 100th rep. You ready to train?
Yeah!
You got your weights?
Yeah!
You got your energy drink?
Of course.
You got time to go to the Pole Recreation Center?
Yeah, what?
Listen, I didn't even graduate high school. I can't teach for the life of me.
Instead, UNT is offering workout classes at a moderate pace, including yoga, cycling, Pilates, and more.
Don't rely on your dad's old workout videos. Check out the UNT Rec Center today.
Listen to my flow to save some H2O. This my water rhyme, and this is how it goes. First, turn off the sink and take some time to think. When you waste water, our supply shrinks. When you take a shower, not more than an hour. Shoot for 10 minutes and save water power. Use a reusable bottle, smart like Aristotle. Ditch all the plastic and be a role model. And that was my H2O flow. Please remember how it goes, because if you don't, Earth will go, oh no!
Welcome back to our coverage of the 2022 midterm elections. Let's take a look at the numbers as we have them. We finally have Harris and Bexar County numbers. Harris at 37 and Abbott. Harris is currently at 37% for Abbott, 62 for Beto. Bexar at 40%, Abbott 59, Beto. Dallas 35, Abbott 64, Beto. Travis 24, Abbott 75, Beto. Tarrant at 51, Abbott 48, Beto. Denton 55, Abbott 43, Beto. We have 52 for Abbott and 46 for Beto in Lead County. Also on statewide, we have 47.4 for Beto and 51.4 for Abbott, which is a much narrower gap that we've seen.
Now let's look a little more closely at the numbers in those 6 swing counties in Texas. Madison Myers has been watching them through the evening and joins us now. Maddie, what are you seeing?
Andrea, we've been following 6 counties this evening, the ones that account for nearly half of the state's votes as vote totals are coming in. Let's look at where each one stands now in the key race for governor. Harris County, home to Houston, is voting blue with 62% for Beto and 37% for Abbott. In Dallas County, the current vote stands at 35% for Abbott and 64% for Beto. Bexar County, home to San Antonio, is voting blue with 54% for Beto and 40% for Abbott. And in Travis County, home to our state capital of Austin, the current vote stands at 24% for Abbott and 75% for Beto. Those 4 counties voted Democrat or blue in the 2020 election. Now the other 2 swing counties, Denton and Tarrant, voted blue or Republican in 2020. Currently, the voting trends like this in Tarrant County stand at 51% for Abbott and 48% for Beto. And here in Denton County, the current vote stands at 55% for Abbott and 48% for Beto. So that's how things are standing at the moment. One more quick thing. Here in Denton County, the issue of decriminalizing marijuana is Proposition B. There's no updates on that right now, but I'll let you guys know later on in the show what I have. That's all I have for now. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Madison. While drugs and how to regulate them have been very difficult social and political issues, they have been overshadowed by the events in the past 2 months when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, that historic abortion rights case that stood for nearly 50 years as the law of the land. This one issue galvanized women across the nation, at least in the early days. First, a look at the issue from NTTV's Isabella Quintanilla, and then reaction from our panel of experts.
Back in June, the Supreme Court overturned a long-standing constitutional right to abortion, sparking a new round of debate across the country.
It's not unheard of for the Supreme Court to overturn a precedent, but it is unusual, and particularly to take back a right that had been recognized 50 years ago.
Here in Texas, the topic of abortion rights has been at the front and center of the governor's race. Candidates Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke have completely different views on the issue.
Because their stances are so, significantly different, I obviously had to make the choice of, okay, well, Roe v. Wade's been overturned, which means I might potentially, with Abbott's stance on abortion and him being our current, state governor, I might potentially lose contraception. I might potentially lose the option, if something terrible was to happen, to receive an abortion.
Governor Greg Abbott's position is clear, saying in this statement, quote, "Texas will always fight for the innocent unborn, and I will continue working with the Texas legislature and all Texans to save every child from the ravages of abortion and help our expectant mothers in need."
The healthcare piece is about making sure that you save the life of the mother and the child. So in that regard, yes, it is a healthcare issue, and it's always important to save the life.
Candidate Beto O'Rourke takes a clear pro-choice stance, arguing that women in Texas have the right to an abortion and should be allowed to make that decision for themselves. This divide has encouraged a record number of women to vote in the 2022 midterm election.
There's much more of an incentive of, well, we have to go vote. Our voice has to matter, because otherwise, where are we then?
Here in Texas, around half of new registered voters are women, and according to the New York Times, across the U.S., the number of women registering to vote has risen by 35%.
As long as abortion is so highly politicized, that's going to be a big issue in this state.
For NTTV News, I'm Isabella Quintanilla.
We are back here with our expert panel, Dr. Matthew Eshbal-Soha, Dr. Valerie Martinez-Ebers, and Professor Randy Loftus. So I want to open the floor to you guys on the abortion issue and the role that it's going to play in future political discussions, and perhaps maybe look into a crystal ball of sorts on what you think that this is going to do, if it's going to kind of swing back maybe towards a more restrictive approach to social issues or a more conservative approach. So who'd like to start us off?
Well, I think that, Texas is decidedly conservative and has long been a very pro-life oriented state, but so is Kansas. And what we've seen is when the status quo shifts and people are really faced with a choice, whereas before, politicians in Texas could advocate for very restrictive abortions, but it was still a protected constitutional right. But as we saw in Kansas, the voters would generally, most Americans, most Texans, most Kansans, most citizens of the United States tend to support abortion with restrictions. And so I think if that becomes the choice, I think it becomes increasingly more difficult for Republicans in Texas to advocate a hard line. We began to see this a little bit with Greg Abbott trying to walk back some of his hardline positions on abortion, but I think it requires the right conditions, maybe something more like 2018 where we saw Beto O'Rourke generate a lot of public support. That sort of environment might put enough pressure on politicians in Texas to advocate for something that is a little less restrictive.
Yeah, and let's remember that for any woman who's 50 years old or younger, they've had this civil liberty, the right to choose what they want to do for their entire lives. So it shouldn't matter race, ethnicity, partisanship. I mean, this is something I think women have expected, even if they don't support it personally. They believe that this is a civil liberty that they're entitled to. So even conservative Republican women in Kansas voted against that referendum, which would have been a very restrictive abortion law.
And I think for many people, this is an example of one group's personal moral choice being imposed on another group, insisting that it be their legal choice. And that is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. People are not, people see this in terms of a moral issue and not something that really is one of the broader societal issues. So the idea that one small, according to the polling, small group can impose its will on the much larger majority, I think is a problem.
So looking at this issue, obviously you both mentioned Kansas and that the turnout it brought out. Do you think that's something that, not just this election, but future elections as well, this is going to be something that will probably come up on the ballots? Is this going to be a big driver in bringing people out to vote?
Yeah, I mean, it's, abortion has driven vote turnout in previous elections. I think we'll continue to see this again. The issue is now more in play with Roe v. Wade being struck down. So states are going to try to move to codify protections if that's where if they lean blue, and then restrictions if they lean red. But I think it becomes increasingly more difficult for Republicans to take a hardline stance when public opinion tends to not support that.
Yes, that's what I think too.
I think it's also eroding some of the public confidence in the court system, which could have profound implications far beyond this issue.
So I do want to touch on that a little bit because obviously in the open I mentioned if you guys think it's going to lean more of a conservative approach or more restrictive in the future. Obviously you just mentioned the issue with the courts. Do you think that that is something that we could see in the future where it maybe is going to be a little more conservative because people have lost trust?
Well, it certainly has. This issue has emboldened people on both sides of the issue. There certainly is a lot more involvement with this than there might have been when it was an accepted constitutional right. So I think that we're going to see a lot of pressure on institutions like the court, like Congress, to be more responsive to these concerns. Because in the past, they could just simply put it aside and say, we can worry about that later, or not at all.
Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight here on NTTV. Dr. Matthew Eshbal-Soha, Dr. Valerie Martinez-Ebers, and Professor Randy Loftus, thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate you being here. And we're going to take a look at some other hot button issues currently at stake, not just here in the state of Texas, but also nationally with my colleague, Kyle Orr. Kyle?
Thanks, Alec. You are right. The issue is teachers, or rather the lack of them. The teacher shortage is a growing crisis in Texas, and in some states, it's reached a breaking point. Just not enough teachers to handle our education systems. And NTV has April Perdant with more from two teachers from the front line.
Go to Canvas.
Zakisha Wright is one of thousands of teachers affected by the national teacher shortage.
We have over 100 kids, and half of our staff is actually missing currently.
As the population of students keeps growing, the number of teachers is declining.
In fact, the attrition rate for teachers in Texas has gone from 10% for the eternity of the 2010s to 12% in the 2021 to 2022 school year alone.
We're looked at as, you can do it all, you have to pivot, you have to change, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it's really not realistic to keep up with those expectations.
Those expectations include closing the learning gaps of many students from the after effects of the pandemic.
In some children, the gaps were just huge. We've had children come and their writing is just not at a second grade level.
Student behavior has also become a significant factor that has led to many teachers quitting.
We're having a lot of issues with some of their behavior because before there was no structure. And now you have teachers that are like, you know what? I'm done.
The decline from $55,433 to $54,192 gives many teachers yet another reason to leave.
So we're doing all of this extra stuff throughout the year and everything. And then some of us are like, and we're getting paid how much?
Teachers are at the heart of the education system. They are the foundation of creating a better tomorrow for the next generation.
I feel like I'm the one that's blessed by them to be able to be a part of their lives, to be able to make a difference in their lives. And for me, that is worth it.
There are so many moving parts in this problem and no real answer or even potential solution in sight. The impact of this one crisis may outweigh all others we have discussed on this evening because teachers and their interaction with students lay the foundation for all of our futures. Andy and Austin, back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Kyle. The one place that some of the problems have been facing teachers in our education system is being addressed in the state capitol. Let's go back to NTTV's Austin Hedgecoth at the Texas Tribune for some final thoughts. Austin?
You're absolutely right. Education is a huge issue here in the Lone Star State, but unfortunately for Texans, it's not the only issue. In fact, for some, it's way down the laundry list of statewide concerns with access to clean water sitting top of mind. Over the past few weeks, I've had a chance to look at the issues surrounding the infrastructure water system here in Texas, and I also got a chance to take a look at what both candidates plan to do about it.
Clean water, something we all need, but not something we're all guaranteed. The 2021 winter freeze exposed many flaws at the Lone Star State's infrastructure, including one delivery system we can't live without.
The whole thought process of, oh, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's gonna break eventually, and by the time it does break, respectfully, all hell's gonna break loose.
During the days, weeks, and months following the freeze, nearly 15 million Texans were left without access to clean water. Now, with the booming population, a thirsty economy, and an aging water system, Texas has some big decisions to make.
This can be an issue that, if it's not politicized, you can have good people making smart engineering decisions that will benefit people down the road.
But the two candidates up for Texas governor don't exactly see eye to eye when it comes to spending state money. Democratic candidate Beto O'Rourke has proposed plans to address the air quality and water concerns across the state, while Republican incumbent Greg Abbott argues that border security and immigration should be the state's top priorities.
If you are targeting Texas to come to, we're going to show up in force and shut down the border.
However, no matter who gets elected, the new governor will have $2.9 billion federal dollars to work with, thanks to the massive Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act passed last fall.
It costs to invest. If we make important investment decisions now, we decrease the likelihood that those bad things will happen.
Additionally, with the demand for water expected to surge over the next few decades, the Texas Water Development Board recently agreed to pitch in $46 million in state funds to fix broken pipes, upgrade flood protections, and build new treatment plants.
It's all pen on paper until, someone comes in and actually starts doing something. And I think the important thing is the action and not just the talk.
For NTTV News, I'm Austin Hedgecott. I'm joined now by Aaron Douglas, the climate reporter here at the Texas Tribune. Aaron, you recently published a story covering the long-term solutions for the Texas water supply and explained how the plans don't exactly account for climate change. With the nearly $3 billion coming down from the federal government as a result of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, what do you see as the best way for Texas to ensure its booming population has continued access to clean water?
Yeah, so I think with the federal funds coming from the IRA, the Texas Water Development Board really has a big opportunity here to leverage those federal funds to increase access to water and address some of the long-standing problems that the state has been facing with water access, such as poor and aging infrastructure. The Texas Water Development Board sort of acts like a bank for water supply projects and water projects in general, so they'll give out low-cost loans and that sort of thing. The IRA money is really going to enhance that work in that regard, and then also it's going to be able to increase water access in rural areas of the state, especially South Texas, where along the border they've really been having a lot of problems with the reliability of the Rio Grande. The challenge, as you pointed out, is that Texas doesn't include climate change projections in its water planning, and so that means that Texas is relying on past droughts in order to plan for future water supplies.
And before we go, can you briefly discuss the concerns with relying on surface water as the main water supply and the pushback project managers are seeing when it comes to flooding land for new reserves for new surface level water?
Yeah, so surface water is water that's literally on the surface, and so it's rivers and reservoirs, and the problem here is that climate change is increasing evaporation rates, meaning that water in reservoirs we're losing that more rapidly, and then also it's increasing temperatures, which is reducing flows in rivers. And so surface water is one of the most susceptible water supplies to climate change, and some of the pushback that I'm seeing across the state there's always pushback when you're trying to build a new reservoir. For example, there's one in northeast Texas. They want to build a really big reservoir and flood like tens of thousands of acres of land, and the rural residents there are very upset. And so it's just important to know that there are trade-offs with these sorts of large infrastructure projects. But with climate change, it makes some of these very large infrastructure projects maybe a riskier bet than they would have been in the past.
All right, well, thank you, Aaron, and that's all I have tonight from the Texas Tribune. So for the final time, it's back to y'all in Denton.
Thanks, Austin. The number of critical issues facing not just Texas, but the entire country is daunting.
Often where we hear the most about how people feel is on social media. So let's head to the social media center where Sydney Deshawn and Isabella Quintanilla are watching the chat. Ladies, what do you have for us?
Andy and Austin, there is no question people love to talk online, whether it is the feeling of freedom to say what they think or the fact that everyone hears them. Now, there are a lot of people online talking about some of the major issues here in Texas this election season, one of those being abortion rights.
Yeah, Governor Greg Abbott signed the trigger law last year, ensuring that Texans would automatically outlaw abortion if the U.S. Supreme Court ever overturned Roe v. Wade. Now, this has kind of fueled Democrats, giving them a burst of momentum.
Yes, we have seen a wave of voters and politicians alike speaking out after the overturn of Roe v. Wade, which has continued to be a major issue in this midterm election. We have Democratic candidate Beto O'Rourke, who tweeted this morning saying, quote, "Today's election will determine whether a woman in Texas can make her own decisions about her body, healthcare, and future. Go vote."
And on the other side of things, Attorney General Ken Paxton is saying that he's focused on defending life in Texas and holding Biden accountable. So it's been a very touchy subject, something that America is pretty divided on, I would say.
Yes, obviously there's a lot at stake this midterm election, and we only have a matter of hours until we know how Texans voted.
Austin, Andy, that gives you a taste of what people have been saying online over the past hour or so. And of course, you can expect that to continue throughout the rest of the evening.
We are going to wrap up the social media center for tonight and send it back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Sydney and Isabella, and thank you for all your hard work tonight. Now let's go to our Noticias colleagues in Studio A for a final look at the night for our Spanish language viewers. Mauricio and Leslie, ¿qué tienen para nosotros?
Gracias, Andrea. Y pues bueno, nos estamos acercando al final de la noche y de nuestra cobertura, así que echemos un vistazo final a los votos que tenemos hasta ahora. Aunque las casillas ya han cerrado, los votos siguen entrando y hasta ahorita para gobernador tenemos un 38% de los votos registrados. Así que nada está definido, pero en la delantera sigue el actual gobernador Greg Abbott con un 51.5% y por otro lado Beto O'Rourke con un 47.4%.
También tenemos números para vicegobernador. Nada más tenemos 26% de los votos, pero republicano Dan Patrick tiene 50.3% de los votos y demócrata Mike Collier tiene 47.4% de los votos. Y también tenemos números para procurador general, 26% de esos votos. El republicano Ken Paxton tiene 49.5%, mientras demócrata Rochelle Garza tiene 47.6% de los votos.
Y pues bueno, hablemos del voto latino y de la importancia para las elecciones de este medio término. Y en Texas hay un poco más de 19 millones de ciudadanos elegibles para votar y de acuerdo al censo del 2021 de ellos un poco más de 6 millones son de origen latino. Así que según una encuesta realizada por la Universidad de Texas en Tyler, un 67% de los latinos que tomaron la encuesta dijeron que posiblemente votarían en estas elecciones.
Algunos de los temas de interés para la comunidad latina incluyen la economía y la inflación, la seguridad en la frontera y el control de armas. Andrea Valdés nos explica más sobre la importancia del voto latino.
Ha llegado el día de elecciones del 2022 y hay un grupo que ha tenido problemas para salir a votar, los latinos. El estado de Texas observó un salto significativo en la población latina a 40.2%, 39.4% identificando como caucásico y al resto de la población a 20.4%. La directora de Estudios Latinoamericanos y Mexicanoamericanos, doctora Valerie Martínez-Ebers, explica que a comenzar en 2018, los latinos vieron un salto en la participación de votantes que será una tendencia que veremos en esta elección. La elección del 2022 es especialmente importante para los votantes latinos, no solo por los temas en juego en las boletas, sino también por las personas en esas boletas.
Es muy importante que nosotros sabemos los candidatos y lo que ellos están tratando de cambiar.
El presidente de la Unión de Estudiantes Hispanos, David Muñoz Sarabia, explica que aunque es difícil tener conversaciones sobre temas políticos, es importante para la comunidad hablar sobre temas que afectan a los latinos como la educación y la economía.
Pero podemos hablar de educación y la escuela y cómo es eso importante para nosotros los latinos.
La doctora Martínez explica que cuando los latinos no votan, es menos probable que los políticos presenten atención a ese grupo particular de electores.
If you don't care about politics, then I guess you don't care about the quality of your community, because it's policy decisions made by officials that start at the local level all the way up to the federal government.
La importancia del voto latino en Texas ha reflejado el impacto en las elecciones pasadas del 2018 y 2020. Vamos a pasar con nuestra reportera en vivo, Noemi Sánchez, para que nos da una última actualización sobre lo que se vivió en el Capitolio y la representación de la comunidad latina. Noemi.
Esta sin duda es una de las elecciones más importantes del año y mucha gente ha salido para promover el cambio y la reforma aquí en Texas. Y bueno, hoy hablamos con muchos votantes latinos quienes dijeron que los temas de importancia para ellos son los temas de inmigración y el acceso al aborto. Y bueno, muchos de los centros de votación han cerrado y ahora lo que queda es ver los resultados de las elecciones, cuáles llegarán en los próximos días, y conforme nos llegue esa información los mantendremos al tanto de todo lo que llegue. Reportando desde Austin, Noemi Sánchez, NTTV Noticias.
Gracias, Noemi, por tu cobertura desde Austin, y gracias por acompañarnos aquí en el Estudio A para la cobertura de las elecciones en tu idioma. Con esto terminamos la cobertura en español, pero regresamos al Estudio B para echar un vistazo final a las reacciones en el Metroplex con Andrea y Austin. Hasta la próxima de nuestra parte.
Gracias, chicos. Now, before we wrap it up here, let's head out one more time to the Democratic and Republican watch parties underway in Dallas and in Flower Mound. Our first stop is with Armando Berry, who is covering the Republicans in Denton. Armando?
Thanks, guys. As our coverage here at the GOP watch party winds down, those who came are proud of their performance at the polls, with the on the cake being incumbent Governor Greg Abbott taking Texas. That's all I have here from the Republican watch party. Let's go down to downtown Dallas, where my colleague Olivia Thompson will have more. Olivia?
Yes, Andy, as we've seen here tonight, spirits have remained high. Everyone is still conversing on the fact that additional stats have rolled in. We've actually just got news that Judge Jenkins is here, Clay Jenkins, and also you can see here that the atmosphere is very lively. Candlelit tables all over. They have Beto for Texas signs on every seat, really pushing that Democrat agenda. Everyone here is really kind. I've been enjoying myself. Thank you. And also now let's go to Flower Mound, where my colleague Armando Berry is with the Republican Watch Party. Armando.
Thanks, Armando and Olivia, and thank you to our NTTV staff for all the work leading up to the midterm election broadcast and tonight's on-air efforts.
Our thanks to Drs. Matthew Eschbach Soha and Valerie Martinez Ebers, as well as Professor Randy Loftus for their support and help through the evening. And our thanks to the folks at the Texas Tribune for their contributions to this broadcast.
And of course, thank you for watching and for taking part in these midterm elections, Your Choice 2022. I'm Andrea Valdez.
NTTV News will be back with regular programming beginning Thursday at noon and 6 p.m. Until then, I'm Austin Wright. Thank you for watching and good night.